So you want to train today and you want to work on acceleration. However, you don't know if you need to do gate starts or sprint work, or perhaps if you just do gates, will it cover both? Well, in this video, let's explore the pros and cons of doing each and how they're both kind of different and how they actually kind of complement each other. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, welcome back to another Monday night edition of BMX Coach Live. I'm your host, Greg Romero, and welcome to the show where I'm helping you guys thrive, experience your potential, and sustain it as it pertains to BMX racing, training, and performance. Hope you guys are doing well on Monday night. I don't know what day we are in terms of COVID, but hey, you know what? I'm over here drinking a little bit of tea to help out my throat. Throat's feeling a little bit scratchy today, so I think we're going to keep this one short. However, we're going to keep it sweet. Short and sweet for sure. Hope you guys are doing well. And today we're going to be talking about a BMX racing skill. Probably the most common one that we all do. Gate starts and also sprints. And what are the pros and cons of each, you know? I get questions all the time. Hey, should I do gates today? Should I do sprints today? I can recall many times over at the Olympic Training Center where one of my athletes, a star athlete, had a really awesome start. And he wanted to work on his second, third pedal. And he wanted to get stronger at it. And he believed he needed to do it on flat pedals. So we did sprints. All right, but, you know, we're getting really, right off the hop. I'll tell you why we were doing that. And I'll also explain why sometimes we don't do gate starts and we do sprints. And many people may argue, you know, gate starts are all-encompassing. They cover everything. And we'll talk more about that here in a second. All right, so let's see here. Welcome to the show. We got Aiden Pearson. He says, hello. My man, can't even speak. My man Ryan, he was actually a guy, he actually bought one of my training plans, and I've been going back and forth with him and helping out with his training, and he actually posed a question. And so I really appreciate him coming up with a question. Hey, should I be doing gates or sprints? And I'm like, man, I keep hearing that. I don't know why I haven't thought about bringing this to you guys. See you guys coming on. I see a few people clocking in here. Camden Funk, hello. How you doing? CDDBZ, question time. Hey, I like that name. That's pretty interesting. Welcome. I'm over here sipping on a little bit of water. If you guys are just now joining in, again, we're going to be talking about should you be doing gate starts or sprint work? And I think this is a really good topic because I think both of them obviously have their benefits, and you really can't do one without the other, right? It's kind of like, hey, do I need a jump or do I need a manual? Do I need to work on half lap work or full lap work? Do I need to do gym work or sprint work? But in this case, do I need to do gates or sprints? And, you know, some of you guys here, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for showing up and giving me many ideas. I'm here to serve you. And I'm very, very fortunate to be your coach. Jake Jensen coming in. Jake Jensen says, what's up with two broken arms? Hopefully you're recovering well, Jake, man. Thank you for showing up, despite the fact that you got broken arms. I don't know how. Maybe your fingers still work, right? How did you do that, man? Let us know. Just got your sprinting secrets and race day secrets DVDs. Haha. Right on, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support, and I enjoy supporting you guys. Once again, I'm here for you guys. And of course, you know, one of the reasons why I go live here, of course, is helping out newer and younger riders and pretty much all proficiencies alike. So whether you're a beginning rider, an intermediate rider want to turn expert, or a seasoned expert, right? We have lots of NAG 1 guys coming here and coming on the show and asking questions and participating within the community here. And it's fantastic, man. And we also get a lot of BMX parents, and we also get a lot of older riders who used to race, and they're dusting off the old bike and they're coming back into the sport only to find that the sport has changed and evolved. And so that's the beauty, right? Like, we all get to help each other, man. It doesn't matter where we're at. That being said, I would say definitely the tip of the day, when it comes to BMX racing, it's best for us to compare ourselves with ourselves. Once we start getting really competitive and talking about being the best, then we start comparing ourselves with other people. And while I think that's okay from time to time, right? Objectively on paper, if you want to be nag one, yes, it might be helpful to compare yourself to another person. But the problem with that is that we tend to beat ourselves up and we start focusing on, we start comparing our journey with someone else's middle, beginning, and or end. And so I think that being said, it's always good to compare ourselves with ourselves, right? Everyone's on their own path. Everyone's on their own journey. Everyone is going through a different phase as it pertains to their own progressions of BMX racing. And of course, I'm here for you guys. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which progression you're in. I've been through all of them and been fortunate to have been through all of them. And I still enjoy and respect all of your guys' journeys. I love beginners and newer riders, of course. And you guys are some of my favorite guys to work with. I genuinely love, it's been a while, but I genuinely love contributing and doing clinics at the beginner level. I just love teaching the fundamentals. I'm just kind of geeky like that. It's really fun. So anyways, as you guys are coming in, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. Aiden Pearson says, I just got Gold Cup #1 in my class. Thanks, Coach G. Hey, man, congratulations. And thank you, Aiden, for showing up consistently every week. I'll drink a little bit of throat tea for, cheers to you. All right, guys. So like I said, I'm going to try to keep this presentation on the gate starts versus sprint work short and sweet. And then, of course, we'll do a truncated version of Ask Coach G where I answer your BMX racing and training performance questions. So make sure you guys type them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get to as many as I can. All right. So, let's move forward here. And I want to move over to, let's see, hopefully the audio works on this. Look at that. All right. So I have a picture here of a fellow client of mine back in, 2013, 14. I was coaching Nick Long and he was a model of mine for the Faster First Straight DVD that I made back then. And as you can see here, obviously he's on the track and also he is on the tarmac, okay, doing sprints on the right side and then doing gait on the left side. And really at the end of the day, this is about as similar as you could get when you're comparing a gate start versus a sprint. Because at the end of the day, listen, this is the acceleration position, all right, coming out of the gate. And so that being said, let's talk about the gate start here versus sprint. Now, let me bring this up real quick. So when it comes to sprint training, let's talk about that first. Sprint training really is it's a skill, right? Just like a gate start is a skill. However, sprint training is all about working on your acceleration position. All right. So sprint training is all about working on your acceleration position. And as you can see, Nick here is, right out of the gate, getting into his, I would say, the third crank, right? He's already done one full revolution. He's about to get in a third crank, fourth crank. Of course, this could also be viewed as your second full crank, right? So he's starting another gate start, if you will. And so sprint training is a great way to work on your acceleration skills, your acceleration position. It's obviously easy to do away from the track. You can go deep into sprint training work because you don't have to go around a track. And of course, it's power training, right? So you're working on overcoming inertia, just like as if you were coming out of the gate. And if you're doing it on flat ground, then you're kind of changing up the power curve, right? You're changing up the formula between force and also speed of discharge, right? Or otherwise known as velocity. So again, power is force times velocity equals power. So either way, whether you're doing gate starts or sprint work, you're always working on power. We're just kind of mixing up the dimensions, or rather the levels of force, the mixture of force versus velocity, right? So if you're doing sprints, it's going to require even more force, less velocity. Doing gates, it's going to require less force, more velocity. Okay, so it's a really good opportunity for you to change that force, that relationship between the force and velocity curve, and also at the same time working on your acceleration position. Now, when it comes to acceleration position, let's see if I can find. We'll just stick with this one. Now, when it comes to acceleration position, here's a good one right here. Here's a picture of Corbin Sherraw just ending his first half crank, about to get into his second half crank. I find in my coaching and helping out tons of riders from beginners, intermediate, all the way to the Olympic level athletes such as these guys, the core is a critical area that is going to be the junction between the touching points of the hands and the feet. And so sprint training is actually probably the best way to address that. Okay. You could really, really work on specific acceleration position by engaging the core, demanding more on the core, whether it's flat ground, whether it's going uphill. Okay. Those are two great options, whether you change your pedals up and go from, it's getting weird, right? And I think next year we're going to start working. A lot of riders, probably close to 70% of our rider base is going to be on flat pedals, because majority of our rider base is under 13, right? So someone let me know in the comments below what it's going to be like for you if you're racing clips next year, or if you're a rider, or if you're a young kid watching, are you racing flats? Either way, sprint training is going to be a great opportunity for you to work on your acceleration position and go deep into it, because again, you don't have to go to the track and do a gate start and then come all the way back around and wait 5, 7, 8 minutes to do another gate start. With sprint work, I mean, literally, if you wanted to, you could do a sprint, turn around, and do it again, and do it again, and probably knock out 3 sprints under a minute if you were that fast. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would definitely get some rest in between. We're not going to talk about metrics when it comes to rest or frequency or volume here. Just want to talk about the difference between gate starts and sprint work. So again, sprint work, overcoming inertia just like a gate start. It's power training. It's muscle recruitment training, okay? And muscle recruitment from everything from the hands to the feet, but more importantly, the core. And of course, we're getting the triple extension involved with the hip, knee, and ankle joints, all right? And there's many variations to sprint training that we can do to impose different power curves of force versus velocity. We could do flat ground work. We could do flat ground work with flat pedals. We could do uphill work, uphill sprints rather. And we could change that up with our flat pedals. We could change pedals. We could change gears. We could throw a weighted vest on. We could do all kinds of cool things with sprint work to help improve our power specifically out of the gate. Not only improve our power, but improve our acceleration position after the gate drops, all right? Again, sprint training is a skill work. We're training the body to, let me say this properly. We're training the body and the muscles to recruit in concert, right? Developing this skill that happens automatically and rigorously and violently. I mean, BMX racing is a power sport, so sprint training is a great opportunity to practice and impose that all-out vigorous acceleration, all right? Whereas a gate start, that's a skill, and sometimes if you overdo it and you overcook it, and you might be in the wrong position, and all of a sudden you're not necessarily delivering any efficient or adequate power because you're out of position, all right? So let's talk about gate starts real quick. And so let me see. All right, so this was the best picture I can find, Gate starts is an awesome opportunity for you to work on your skill. And I would say the main difference between gate starts, well, there's a couple main differences between gate starts and sprint work. And number one, reaction, right? You're not going to be able to get a reaction. Number two, there's not a gate that you're balancing on and the front end just drops and then, you're working on this first movement and perfecting the first movement, right? The first movement is going from the starting stance into the acceleration position, right? Which is going to be head and shoulders over the handlebar grips, just like this picture here. And simultaneously extending through that front foot, getting that triple extension executed properly. You can't really do that with a sprint. Okay, look at this. Same rider. Nick's already committed. Head and shoulders, they already executed the first movement. Head and shoulders are over, but the front end's not off the ground, is it? He's not trying to beat the gate down. He's simply just getting into his acceleration position. And then from a raw standpoint, he's just working on raw acceleration. And that's what sprint training is. It's raw acceleration. There is no fluff. There are no extra components to get involved or in the way when it comes to acceleration. Okay, gate starts are skill work. Okay. Gate starts are a great opportunity to work on that first movement, executing it properly. Reaction. Okay. And then of course you have to battle that excuse me, that chain between getting the extended front foot. When the front foot is extended all the way at 6 and 12 o'clock, then you have that skill of getting into the second pedal. And that's a really hard skill for most of us to do because all kinds of weird things are happening. You have Newton's third law coming into effect. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So you have to worry about and fight the hips going backwards after you've done a violent first pedal snap explosion, right? Let me know what you think in the chat. Holy smokes, we're getting people in here. We got all kinds of comments coming in. All kinds of, they look like questions for tips. Let's see here. We're talking about gears. We're talking about, let's see here, tips for cruisers, downhill sprints. Okay, cool. Let me find a comment that's relevant to what we're talking about. How do you know when you're ready for clips? Okay, let's see here. Do you think it's better to watch the light or listen for the beep? Canon, I'll get to that. Should sprints be with flats or clips, and which one should be done more frequently? Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. I want to keep it relevant in terms of sprint work versus gate work, and I'm trying to get you guys to understand the difference. Both are skills. Sprint work is raw acceleration. Gate start, I would say, is more raw reaction timing, and also reaction power, right? Because when you're coming out of the gate, and you could, well, you can't really get this with a box sprint, right? Unless you get the sprint block, which allows the back pedal to come backwards, and then boom, you can react off that. But yeah, I would say at the end of the day, if you're going to train, right? If you're going to train and you want to work on your reaction time, you want to work on your mechanics, you want to work on your mentals at the start, then I would say do gate starts. Gate starts are super important. It's a skill that everyone needs to have honed down, kind of like a jump shot in basketball, right? Kind of like a baseball player swinging a bat. You got to be able to catch the ball and throw, but more importantly, you got to be able to swing the bat. If you can't hit, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to find yourself on a Major League Baseball roster or any roster. Trust me. When I was 8 years old, I couldn't hit. I got beat out by a girl for second base. She could hit, I couldn't. Straight up. Gate start is a critical skill. Gate starts don't replace the ability for you to improve raw power, acceleration power. Sprint training doesn't give you the ability to improve your reaction time out of the gate. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions or thoughts as it pertains to gate starts versus sprint training? Again, here's another great chart that I created for Faster First Rate DVD. Sprint training is going to address the drive acceleration phase, which is going to be one to three full cranks out of the gate. All right. So I would say that's more like crank 2 to 3, right? That's because at the end of the day, one full crank is 15 feet of acceleration. So your sprint training is really going to work on 15 feet to 30 feet, 15 feet to 45 feet. Your gate start's going to help with the first 15 feet. All right, that first crank explosion out, trying to get your handlebar grips in front of the guy next to you, and then getting into the second half crank right away, jumping on it. And at the same time, there are some similarities here. And here's an example. Nick's 15 feet out of the gate. He's already beginning his third half crank, or you could look at this as his second full crank. Nick is getting a little bit more demand in terms of force doing the sprints in this area. When it comes to gate start, when he does a gate start in this area, this acceleration drive phase, he's getting a little bit more speed, a little bit more velocity. He's going downhill. He's shooting out of a gate. The demand is different. So understand that at the end of the day, I think we can all agree here that sprint training is raw acceleration. It's skill work for pedaling acceleration. Gate starts is raw skill for reaction and also getting to your second full crank, because your positioning on your second crank is really dependent on how you're coming out on the first crank. Is your first movement properly getting into that acceleration position? Are you able to hold it from 6 o'clock, 6 and 12, getting into that second half crank? That's a skill in itself. Certainly you could work on that with sprints, right? You could work with that on sprints, but it's just a little bit different because you're not really getting, if you're doing a box sprint especially, you're not really getting that reactionary power demand. All right, I think that's enough on that, guys. If you guys have any questions on that, hopefully that was enlightening. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys on that one. I didn't really go super deep in terms of like a bunch of photos. This came up last minute. All the ideas were in my head today, but I didn't have all the photos, but hopefully my language helps you understand. Let's see here. We have the community talking to each other. This is cool. Good stuff. Well, I tell you what. Yeah, let's jump into these questions, shall we? All right. Let's get to these questions. We'll get straight to Ask Coach G here right after the break, guys. Ask your best questions. Hey guys, I have a question. What would it do for you if you could enhance your power out of the gate, enhance your sprint speed down the first straight, enhance your skills, enhance your mental performance mind state? What would that do for your racing or your kids' racing? If you're seeing the value of enhancing your BMX performance, consider joining the community of BMX Training Pro and get the same access my Olympic athletes have enjoyed, as well as thousands of BMXers all over the world. Some members use the access to improve their gate start techniques. Some also use the access to keep them motivated to train, and you'll find your reason when you gain access and join BMX Training Pro today.
Stay focused, get ready now. For real, get ready now.
Nitro with the nice flow.
Stay focused, get ready now. For real, get ready now. Let's go. Stay focused, here the heat come. Concentrate to the sound of the beat drum. Start it up, take it
All right, guys. Hey, welcome back. Hey, make sure that you check out bmxtraining.com, the membership website where you gain access to all my best kept secrets, gate start, sprint training, mental training, jumping, manualing, bunny hopping, skills, training plans for 12 and under, 13 and over, everything and anything, working on getting a faster first straight, working on your off-season training, working on all kinds of crazy stuff. Guys, if you guys get a membership over there, you're supporting me, and that helps me to come here live every Monday night. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the support. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be your coach. And if you want more access, join the membership and join our community. I really appreciate you guys. All right, so looks like we got a bunch of questions coming in, and it's a little bit all over the board. I'll do my best to get to most of these. Again, I'm kind of dealing with a real weird thing with my throat. It's just a little bit tight, so man, got to work on that. Been working on a little bit of throat coat here. It's not like I'm sick or anything. It's just, yeah, just kind of dealing with a little bit of tightness in my throat. It's what happens when you talk too much. Doing these shows are not easy, man, because I have to be able to entertain, educate, and keep it flowing, and that means I got to chat the entire time. Not only that, but I do work with a lot of clients one-on-one, and those coaching sessions I'm talking as well. So doing a lot more talking than normal lately. All right, so we got Drew Polk coming in. Drew Polk, how you doing? Anthony Grasher, are you going to Tulsa in November? I don't think so, Anthony. I'm going to be staying tight. There's a lot of things going down over here. We're in the midst of shopping for a home here in San Diego, so lots of moving parts right now, and I need to stay home and stay healthy. Not that going to Tulsa. Listen, if there was no COVID, if there wasn't a bunch of stuff going on, man, I'd love to go to Tulsa. It's one of my favorite races of the year. Perhaps next year would be awesome. And man, I can't wait to get to a race. Maybe Phoenix. If I gotta look at the schedule. I know the USA BMX released their schedule, and man, it would be awesome to get out there and see you guys and meet you guys and shake your hands or do a fist bump or elbow bump or whatever. It'd be great to talk to you guys and meet you guys in person. So let me scroll to the top here. Camden Funk had a really good question here. Where is it? Please forgive me if I'm running slow here. Where did it go? Where did it go, Camden? Something about listening to the lights or listening to the horn. Here we go. Do you think it is better to watch the light? Excuse me. Let me ask that question again. Do you think it is better to watch the light or listen for the beep? Yeah, that's always a great question that pops up quite a bit. And I would say at the end of the day, it's really all about what complements your style coming out of the gate. Because here's the thing. Let's take two riders, both equal, I would say, like height, skill. These guys race each other, same age, whatnot. I always refer to Corbin Sherraw and looks like the feet kind of broke up a little bit. Corbin Sherraw and Connor Fields. One looks at the lights, the other one looks at the gate and listens for the beep. The thing I like about watching the gate, like I don't watch the lights. When I was younger, I used to watch the lights. It was a lot easier. I had a cue. But when you're watching the gate, I can already keep my head down in the proper acceleration position. It's just one less movement that I have to worry about. All I have to worry about is one simple thing, which is just throwing my shoulders forward. When you're looking at the light, you know, your head's cocked-eyed, your eyes are over there, and it's like, okay, I got to go. And then it's like, I have to do this transition from my neck, my eyes. However, you know, if you could get it down to where you can keep your head straight and, you know, draw your eyes over to the lights, get the chin down, draw the eyes over, and then lead with the head and shoulders without much movement in the head. Watching the lights is pretty good because there are studies that indicate that we react faster with sight over than sound. All right. The speed of light is really, really fast. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's really, really small. It's funny. I discovered this, of all places, at a professional ice hockey game in Anaheim, watching Anaheim Ducks versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they actually had this hockey science thing going on, like slap shots and reaction time. They're talking about reaction with like how fast a goalie has to react to a puck, and they do all this eye training movements and stuff, and that was something that kind of came up, and they were like, okay, well, you react to the sound and hit the horn, or you react to the light and hit the horn, and it showed and indicated that every time you saw it with your vision that you actually reacted faster. So, however, again, you know, if you can react fast enough through the sound and you're comfortable with just keeping your head down and just keeping it simple to where you drive the head and shoulders, hey, both work, right? Both work. I think it comes down, it's a preference. I would say with younger riders, it's best for them to watch the lights and react off that. Keeps things simple. Okay, we got some gear questions. Okay, these guys are talking to each other. It looks like Mike, Joe Gallo, and someone else is talking about gear. So cool. I'm glad you guys are working that out. Here we go. Omar De Jesus. Tips for 34-year-old novice with a cruiser. Cool. Flat sprints or downhill sprints better? Great question, Omar. It depends on what purpose. At the end of the day, flat sprints are going to work on more force demand. A downhill sprint is going to work on more velocity demand. Again, power is force times velocity. Okay, so flat ground sprints, we're going to work on a little. We're going to impose a little bit more demand on the force component. A downhill sprint is going to be less force and more velocity. Okay, both are good. I would do, sometimes I have my athletes do force work, and then we end on downhill sprints. We do a few downhill sprints just to kind of program and end on a little bit more velocity. Okay, so both are good, but I would say in the beginning, I wouldn't try to mix things up. I would find one, focus on that. Again, I would focus on either a flat ground sprint and work on force and go deep into that. It pretty much mimics a strength training exercise in the gym. Okay, if you want to work on a little bit more speed, again, when you say downhill sprints, you know, I'm presupposing that you're talking the same starting technique, right? So, for example, a box sprint, right? Overcoming inertia, doing it from flat ground or doing it from a downhill. I've done both. If you're doing a rolling sprint, a downhill sprint versus a box sprint, well, then you're talking two different applications, right? Because one's going to be working more on the drive acceleration phase out of the gate, whereas a rolling sprint going downhill is going to be more like right before a first jump, or for some more advanced riders that are not done accelerating, it's going to work on their top end leg speed after the first jump and going into the first turn. So know the difference, right? But, you know, sprint training there's no such thing as a bad idea when it comes to sprint training. Just go out and do sprints, right? I would say at the end of the day, most of us just think about, you know, and dream about doing sprints and talk about doing sprints. Let's take some action and get the work done. I'm saying that for those that need to hear it. Mike Fernandez, I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking to another guy here. You're really active. Let's see. Mike Fernandez says, combine starts and sprints by doing dead man starts, roll up to the line, feather the brake, position body just like in the gate. When come to a stop, be balanced, and at the same time, snap just like gating. Yeah. I mean, that's just another way to mimic a gate start, right? And you're also working on acceleration. Yeah, for sure. That's a great one. And I would say, you know, back in the 90s, I used to do that. But then again, don't get it confused. That technique there, Mike, of course, if you're doing that on flat ground, you're working on more of a skill of acceleration, right? Whereas you're not really doing a gate start. You're kind of mimicking it, but it's not exactly the skill. Okay. Thank you for your contribution. Joe Gallo, Coach G, how do you lean over your bars when doing a gate but stop your back tire from slipping and skipping? Great question. Let me take a drink of water. My throat's actually starting to get... Anyone know of a vocal coach? How do you lean over your bars when doing a gate but stop your back tire from slipping and skipping? Yeah, I see what you're saying. So basically what you're saying is you're leading with the head and shoulders, and the back wheel is getting unweighted as a result. So it spins out. It slips. It skips. I would say you definitely need to focus a little bit more on simultaneously extending through that front leg. Focus on, please forgive me, focus on that triple extension of extending through that hip, knee, and ankle joint. That is really important. So maybe less head and shoulder forward and a little bit more extension through the hip. Maybe practice standing a little bit more taller. You don't have to be bent over. Now, I don't see a video. I don't see a picture. Everything I'm doing is kind of a mind read. I'm kind of visualizing how riders end up doing that, and that's because they're bent over too far over the hips. So maybe you might want to check where your head and shoulder angle is at, and maybe lift that up. Okay, and that way you get extension through the hip, knee, and ankle joint. If you're leaned over and then after the fact getting through the hip, knee, and ankle joint, then yes, the back end is unweighted and you actually miss the opportunity to deliver power. So you're going to need to work on that timing a little bit, Joe. Thank you so much for that question. I think that was a great question. Thank you so much for your contribution. MD Shamanic? MD Sean Mike. Please forgive me. I'm about 2 months into the BMX world, and I'm hooked. I'm training for the Grands in Tulsa, Oklahoma next month with a fist bump. All right. Drew Polk says, on my second pedal, I extend my arms out and my hips go back, which causes a stall. What can I do to help prevent this? I would say, Drew, thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate you showing up. If you guys don't know Drew's actually a national age group #1 rider, and he's showing up and asking questions, and that's awesome. And I mean, we have everybody, right? This is fantastic. Drew, again, I always, fist bump, man. There's a couple things you could do, Drew, and I would say you could do this, you could address this on the bike or off the bike. Number one, off the bike, I would say core work. Core work is going to be key. You could do a simple barbell rollout. Any kind of core work, for the most part, is going to strengthen your ability to keep the hips forward, or rather keep the butt in front of the seat. That's what I tell my riders. Keep the butt in front of the seat. That being said, when you're doing your sprint work, visualize and configure what it's like to keep the butt in front of the seat. And I would do this, Drew. I would take my phone. I would give it to somebody. I would do a slow-mo sprint, right? And imagine keeping your butt in front of the seat between the 6 and 12 position. I'm sorry, not between. Between the first crank and the second crank, when your pedals be in the 6 and 12 position. Hopefully you're following me here. Get an understanding and get a kinesthetic feeling and configure what it's going to feel like with the hips in front of the seat, okay? With the hips in front of the nose of the seat. Take some video, have someone do that, look at it. If it's still behind the seat, then get it really in front. It's going to feel awkward. Get the video for feedback. Make sure that you're in the right position, and then record that feeling unconsciously. Okay, well, what does that feel like? Okay, I know what it's going to feel like, because it's hard to look at yourself when you're looking through your own eyes. See what I'm saying? So you have to get that feedback through video, so you could record the kinesthetic feeling of what it's like to do the proper movement. Do this at 50%, Drew. Do it 10 times. It's not going to take much energy, especially if you're doing it at 50%. record that feeling, and then once you get that mastered, once you're starting to get comfortable with that feeling, then go ahead and bring the intensity up with your sprints. Okay, hopefully that helps. I'll give you a third tip, Drew. A third tip here. A third tip to work on your a third tip with working on your hips staying in front of the seat so you can get an effective and efficient second pedal would be an opposite foot box sprint. Just start opposite foot. And I would already start by already having your shoulders over the handlebar grips with your butt already in front of the seat. That's going to force your core to be in, I'm sorry, it's going to force your body to be in the proper awkward position, and then you're going to have to access the core muscles and also extend through that second pedal through the hip, knee, and ankle joint simultaneously, and you're going to strengthen that specifically and go deep. Do lots of those. And honestly, same thing. You don't need to ramp up the intensity at first. Configure the feeling. Make sure you understand what that feeling's like before you go 100%, Drew. Thank you so much for your questions, man. I really appreciate your contribution over here. What else do we have here? Craig Martin showed up. Jacob James. Let's see here. Jacob James, he always has something. Do you ever notice wheel hop clipped in your first few cranks of a sprint form issue? Yeah, we just addressed that with Joe Gallo. So it just depends on the angle of your upper body. Drew Polk says, thank you so much, Coach. You can never know too much, so I'm always wanting to learn. I just recently started doing opposite foot box sprints, so I'll keep working at it. Drew, thank you so much. You just reminded me of something I just listened today on a podcast. I'm always learning too. And there's 3 things that we're always doing in life. What did he say? I want to say this properly, but we're always serving, earning, and learning. Okay, no particular order. We're always learning, earning, and serving, right? Serving, learning, earning. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You know, if you could do 1/3 of learning, 1/3 of earning, 1/3 of serving, man, that's a fantastic life, right? You're living in a true ecosystem of humanity. Violet Talley. So I have a question. I messed up my first really important race and I'm really frustrated. How do I get over that? A couple ways, Violet. I love these mental training questions, mental performance questions rather. How do you get over a race where you got frustrated? First and foremost, let's start with a couple core presuppositions over here at BMX Training. Number 1, if you're not winning, you're learning. Number 2, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So get the feedback. Hey, what is it that I did, or rather, what is it that I can learn from that experience of being frustrated? Don't get too caught up on the why you're frustrated. You're frustrated, okay? I mean, listen, I'm a hypnotherapist. I can work that out with you. I also do mental emotional release therapy work, but we don't have time for that. So I would focus on, what did you learn? If you didn't win, what did you learn? What's the feedback? Learning and feedback, okay? And then ask yourself, what is it that I could have done differently? I would write it down. Violet, I would take a journal. Please forgive me. Came across one of my old journals from back in the day, and I would write down stuff that happened after each race, win, lose, or draw. I would journal. Look, this is, you can't really see it, but end of Friday, here's Saturday. I wrote down how Saturday went. How did it go? What did I feel? What did I see? What emotions were present? What was important? What did I learn? So you guys on the pro level, at the highest level of sport, whether it's amateur or pro, guys are documenting stuff. And at the same time, it's therapeutic because you're putting it down on paper and you're getting it out of the way so you can move on. Okay? So I think it's key for you to do some journaling. I journal every morning. There's so much stuff that goes on through the human brain. I mean, we're dealing with like close to 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot. In an effort to be creative and bring in new creative stuff, we have to empty the trash, and we do that through journaling. We can do that through meditating. The choice is yours. I do that with my computer, my desktop. I've already shown you. It's really clean. I've taken a bunch of files and I've deleted them to make room for new ones. And so here's the thing: if you're going to be stuck in this frustrated state, Violet, you're still kind of stuck in this fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight mode, you're not in a creative mode. It's only when we're creative, well, then we can create the reality that we want, right? And so when we're creative, we can find ways to win. We can find ways to get that satisfaction or that success that we want. So it comes down to getting to your ideal performance mind state, and everything is state dependent. If you're awake, you're in a state. You're in some kind of state. Your state's going to contribute. Sorry, please forgive me. Your state is going to contain your thoughts and or feelings. Thoughts that are going through your head, feelings that are going through your body. I'm going really deep with this, aren't I? Please forgive me. But if you're frustrated, then you're only operating on one half of the brain, the critical side, right? The survival side. And that's fine. But to get creative, you have to get the left brain and the right brain to be one, right? And how do we get out of that? Well, I would say journaling, meditating, focusing on the breath. This is really esoteric as it pertains to BMX training and racing performance. And all my top level athletes, we all do some kind of meditative work. Everyone's journaling. Everyone's working on the emotional component. Everyone's working on the mental component. Because that's the difference. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to get off the horse on that one. Jake Jensen, what is your advice for getting the gains of sprints in the winter? I can't do sprints in the winter, but I have access to a road bike on a trainer. Yeah, you know what? I would say that at the end of the day, Jake, I would say at the end of the day, Jake, the wintertime is a great opportunity to work on your weaknesses, and also at the same time, strengthen your strengths. Why not? And so if the ground is wet, yeah, it might be hard to do flat ground sprints. And I would say during the wintertime, you at least want to be doing some kind of skill work on the BMX bike. Whether you're dealing with snow, rain, cold winters. Listen, I've lived in the middle of the country, so I know what it's like. You have to get creative. I think it's important for during the wintertime to stay on the bike. Whether you're doing sprint work, gate start work, maybe going to a skate park, an indoor skate park, get resourceful. If you can't sprint outdoors in the open sky, then find a covered parking garage. And those are always tough because there's always security there. Now, if you have a trainer, then yes, you could do interval work. Interval work is a great opportunity to work on your muscular endurance. And that's I would say for a lot of us, that is an area that we can never strengthen enough. Ryan Brogier, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. He says, good evening, Greg. Just finished some sprints with a bicep flex. Look at this. Mike Fernandez and Jacob James are going back and forth. Cool. Eric Whitaker, we got here a little late for the party, but we will replay as soon as possible. Yes, man. Thank you. Alan says, so thankful for an indoor track, Indiana. You guys are lucky, man. That's great. Same with that track in Minnesota. Steel wheels, Drew Polk says. Run on. How far are we into this live stream? I can't tell. 50 minutes. So, you know, my voice held up. I think we're doing pretty good. I'll answer a few more questions. Trying to keep it as it pertains to the subject, of course. But you know me, you guys ask questions, and I'll just go deep into it. Again, we're talking about should you be doing gate starts or sprint work? All right, leading up to the Grands, is it too late to make a gear change, or do I have enough time to adjust? Ryan Austin Outdoors ask, well, what are you trying to do, Ryan? For what purpose do you want to change the gear? Do you want to go harder, or do you want to go easier? The Grands is going to be a fast track. You're going to need, it's going to be hard packed. It's going to be long. The rhythm section is going to be long, and you're going to definitely need some meat under your feet. And potentially it's going to be tight to the first jump. What are you riding on now? Whatever gear you're on now is going to be probably the best gear that you're on, because you're used to it. So maybe perhaps, are you looking to improve your acceleration? Are you looking to improve your track speed? Right? For what purpose are you trying to change the gear? Because if you're looking to change the gear to improve your track speed, then perhaps you can work on a little bit more muscular endurance. Maybe perhaps you could do more interval training, right? Half lap work, 3/4 lap work, full lap work, broken sprints. If you're looking to change your gear in an effort to improve your acceleration out of the gate, sprints. It's what we've been preaching about, working on that skill of overcoming inertia, but more importantly, strengthening that acceleration position. Putting a little bit more demand, imposing a little bit more demand on the force component of power. Ryan Brogier, any tips to keeping the front end from speed wheeling at the top of the sprint? I seem to have the front wheel start hopping above 23 miles an hour. I might need to see a picture of that, Ryan, or a video, man. You just email me. Just email me. I was watching some slow-mo video of Sam Willoughby just the other day at Black Mountain. I don't know what year it was. Maybe it was like 2013. I don't even know if I have the video. I don't have the video. Man, he's so darn strong, so darn fast that he never stopped accelerating all the way to the first turn. He progressively accelerated. And why am I bringing this up, Ryan, is because he was so darn strong. He was never topped out because he was getting this shoulder roll jerk thing where his front end was coming up because he just couldn't get enough out of his pedal stroke. And he was already a bike length ahead of everybody. But he's never stopped accelerating. So, again, Newtonian's third law, you're getting it, front end might be popping up, might not be a bad thing. Might not be a bad thing. Depends on what your body acceleration position's like. If you're popping the wheelie and your shoulders are way behind and your butt's way behind, you're almost like doing a wheelie to the point where you're not getting enough out of each pedal stroke, then yes, then we need to address that. But if it's popping up and your body's still in that nice sweet spot of the cockpit, because a top end leg speed sprint, the positioning is a lot different than an acceleration sprint, right? Overcoming inertia, the body positioning is a lot more aggressive, shoulders over the handlebar grips, as opposed to sprinting after the first jump. It's a little bit more back, right? You've already settled in. Okay, so that being said, might not be a bad thing. Might not be a bad thing. Kiwi John, my man. Hey, Greg, do you think you could group starts into, say, 3-pedal, 7-pedal, first straight, say 5 of each as a workout, yeah. And for what purpose? For what purpose do you want to do that? I don't typically change the distance too much on any of my sprints. If anything, if I'm going to change anything, I'm going to change the demand, right? So maybe perhaps, maybe I change the starting protocol, right? How are we starting the sprint? So for example, you can mix a box sprint with like a rolling jump sprint, go deep into the force stuff first, and then go deep into the high velocity sprints afterwards. That's a way you can do it. Just depends. All right, so we're getting close to the top of the hour. There's a couple more questions I got here. Rocco PM 777 and also Eric Whitaker. I think those are going to be my last 2 questions of the day. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. Is roller training worth it for BMX? Hoping to get my 6 intermediate, 5 novice, and 4 novice more control into the bike under pedaling load. They tend to swerve a bit when pedaling hard or jumping. Yeah, that's a great question. I do get that question brought up a lot by BMX parents as they see their kid weaving as they're coming out of the gate. Now, here's the thing. Newton's third law. It comes up a lot. It comes up a lot on this show. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Accelerating is no different. It's very Newtonian. They swerve because, well, the bike's going in that direction. And then when they're getting into the next crank, the bike swerves in that direction. Now, here's the funny part. I actually took an athlete. It was a woman pro. I'm not going to say her name in respect. She would probably appreciate if I did, but I try to do my best to respect athletes and their privacy. We took a GCOG power meter, and we compared 2 different style sprints. We did acceleration sprints, and one set we did her normal style, left to right, just let it fly naturally. The next set we worked on keeping the bike straight as possible. We set up timers. We looked at the power. Now, this isn't a study. I'm not going to claim this is going to work for everybody. However, this worked for her, and this may work for you. So it's open for interpretation, as always. We found that her trying to keep the bike straight was actually slower and less power. Letting the bike fly left to right naturally was faster. Now, and she was able to deliver more power. Now, could you say she wasn't used to keeping it straight? And maybe perhaps it was a little bit inhibiting? And accessing muscles was a lot different? It was a new exercise? Yeah, maybe. But we weren't gonna make a conscious change to like, let's try to keep the bike straight. It's okay for the bike to go left to right. I have no problems with that. Now, if they're going from lane 1, let's say they start in the middle of the gate, okay? Let's say they start in lane 4, and they're going from lane 3 to 5, 3 to 5. Okay, we have a problem. But if we're talking like within a 6 to 8 inch range here, no big deal. I wouldn't worry about that. Rollers are not going to fix that. Rollers are going to impose a little bit more velocity. When they're doing sprints on flat ground natively on their bike, the bike's going to go back and forth, left to right, naturally. When that right crank arm goes down, I'm pulling on that right handlebar a lot, right? I'm bracing with that. Bam, bam, bam. So, yes, theoretically, if we could keep the bike straighter, a straight line is a lot less distance than a consistently S-curve line, right? So, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Now, with a younger rider, just practice doing sprints. Practice doing flat ground sprints. And you know, if you want them to try to keep the bike straight, I have no problems with that. But I would say flat ground sprints by default are going to strengthen their core, and that's what we're looking for. That's what I was looking to tell you what to do. That's the purpose of doing a flat ground sprint for a younger rider, is to strengthen that acceleration position. And a flat ground sprint is going to impose a lot more demand on the core as opposed to coming out of the gate, and also as opposed to doing rollers on a sprint. I hope that's helpful. That was a lot. We have more questions coming in. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys. Let's see. Eric Whitaker. What's the best advice I can give my 12 novice son who's going to the Race of Champions other than just having fun? Ooh. That's an open-ended question. I would say, hey, man, I would keep it fun. I would say, hey, your goal is to have fun. And what's the result that you would like? Have some fun with that. Create a target for him to aim at. And I think it's important, especially when they're young, to try to influence younger riders to start creating targets, right? Start creating goals and focus on that outcome, right? Because here's the problem. He's going to go there to just have fun. And if he's just kind of like, I'm just going to go see what happens. Listen, seeing what happens isn't really it's not really laser focused, is it? It's too broad. Way too broad. And so whatever happens, is that going to be fun? If your son gets motoed with the intent of having fun, is he still going to have a smile when it's all said and done? Maybe you need to ask him that. If we go there with the intent of having fun and you get motoed, are you still going to have fun? If he says no, then let's bring it a little bit tighter and create a target. Don't make it really tight target. Don't maybe not. Is it to make the main? Hey, let's focus on the goal of making the finals. That's a positive motivator as opposed to a negative motivator, which is, a lot of riders show up to the grands and it's like, I just want to make sure I don't get motoed. Okay, well, dude, the unconscious mind doesn't understand negatives. Guess what guess what you're programmed and set up to do? Get motoed. All right, guys, we're 2 minutes past the hour. I love you guys. I see all kinds of other questions coming in. Man, I really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate the opportunity to be your coach, as always. Posting videos on Thursdays as well. I just batched a bunch of those, so look for those on Thursday. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you guys are informed when I go live, and also you're informed and you don't miss out on any videos when I post. Also, when you do subscribe and hit the notification bell, that helps the algorithm. That's truly supporting me, and I really appreciate that. The more people that we can help out here at BMX Training, the more that people are going to stay involved in the sport, and the more that people could learn, the more that people can have fun, the more that people can create goals and accomplish them, the longer they're going to stay in the sport. And of course, the ecosystem of our BMX industry and our racing industry is going to continuously grow. And I would say right now we're probably at an all-time low. It's pretty crazy. So that's one of my purposes of showing up here. I'm doing my part in terms of serving the sport, serving you guys, and ensuring that you guys are showing up to the track, doing the work, having some fun, creating some goals, and going out there and accomplishing them. Again, my name is Greg Romeros. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys at the races.